The first time Aidan stepped onto the planet Lysoria, he felt like he had walked into a painting. The sky shimmered with teal and gold streaks, and the clouds flowed like liquid silk. Towering spires of crystalline structures pierced the horizon, each etched with glowing symbols that pulsed softly. Lysoria was beautiful, terrifying, alive. He had come as a diplomat, representing Earth in a fragile alliance with the royal house of the Lyrovans, an alien race as mysterious as they were majestic. But Aidan had never expected to be personally assigned to the care of Calyra, the youngest and most enigmatic member of the royal family. Calyra's presence was magnetic. She moved with the fluid grace of someone who seemed to belong to the very air itself, her sapphire eyes catching the light like living gemstones. Her long silver hair shimmered faintly in the ambient glow of the palace halls. She was royalty, yes, but she was also deeply lonely, something Aidan would soon understand. The first week was strange. Aidan attended official banquets and ceremonies, carefully navigating the delicate politics of Lysoria. But every night, he returned to a guest chamber adjacent to Calyra's private quarters. It was tradition, one human aide assigned to the royal family not only for communication but also for companionship. The first night, he met her quietly in the chamber. "You do not sleep?" he asked, noticing the way she stood by the window, staring at the glowing city below. "I cannot," Calyra admitted. "I sleep in fragments, dreams. They trouble me." Aidan tilted his head. "Dreams," she nodded. "Visions of my people, of mistakes, of wars that never happened. I wake and find myself alone." It was an alien concept to him, but somehow he understood. Humans also wrestled with nightmares. Perhaps he thought some fears were universal. That night, as the palace settled into silence, Calyra approached him again. Her eyes, usually so composed, were shadowed with a rare vulnerability. "You may stay," she asked softly. Aidan blinked. "Stay. Here?" "Yes. Sleep by my side. If you do, perhaps the shadows will not feel so heavy." The words were strange, intimate. He felt the weight of centuries of tradition pressing on her delicate frame. But there was also a silent trust in her tone, a trust no human had earned so quickly. "Very well," he said. It was awkward at first. Lysorian physiology was unlike anything he had encountered. Their senses were heightened, and even the smallest touch carried immense resonance. But Calyra seemed to need it, human warmth grounding her as surely as gravity held planets in orbit. They lay side by side, a human and an alien, and for the first time in his life, Aidan felt the fragility of peace. He realized that diplomacy was more than politics. It was the quiet moments that bound species together. Over the following days, their bond deepened. During daytime meetings, Aidan maintained the stoic professionalism expected of him, but at night, Calyra would share fragments of her world, stories of her ancestors, the history of Lysoria, and the peculiar customs of her people. "Humans are resilient," she said one evening, her hand brushing lightly against his. "You endure things we would collapse under." Aidan chuckled softly. "Pain, fear, loss. We live with them, but we keep moving. I suppose that surprises you." She nodded. "It does. And yet, it is admirable." He was struck by the sincerity of her words. Lysorians had long lives, some spanning centuries, yet Aidan realized that longevity did not equate to endurance. Humans could endure moments, emotions, and trials that might destroy a Lysorian spirit. It was humbling. But not all nights were peaceful. One evening the palace alarms blared, a security breach. Rogue insurgents had infiltrated the eastern wing. Aiden and Calyra were in her private chambers. "Stay here," she commanded. "I won't leave you," he said firmly. Her eyes widened. "You cannot. If they breach this room, you will die." Aiden's hand found hers. "I cannot let that happen." They huddled together as Lysorian security forces engaged the intruders. The room shook as blasts of fire rattled the walls. Aiden felt fear, not for himself but for Calyra. And yet, he did not let panic control him. Humans could face death and move forward, he reminded himself. It was instinct, honed by millennia of survival. Hours passed, or what felt like hours. The breach was contained. The palace still stood. And in the quiet aftermath, Aiden and Calyra stayed side by side, finding comfort in the steady presence of one another. It was during these nights that Calyra began to speak of things no Lysorian would have dared share publicly. Her doubts, her fears of failing her people, the loneliness that had haunted her for centuries. "You are different," she said quietly one night, her gaze fixed on his face. "Most of my people would never speak to a human like this. They would fear the bond or dismiss it." Aiden shrugged. "Perhaps they do not understand us. But some things, some feelings cannot be explained. Only shared." Her hand slid into his, and he felt the subtle resonance of her physiology, the quiet thrum of life and energy. It was like holding a star in his palm. And for the first time, she allowed herself to rest fully, letting him be her anchor. "Thank you," she whispered. "For staying. For understanding." "Always," he replied, squeezing her hand gently. "I will always stay." The weeks that followed were transformative. Diplomacy and politics continued during the day, but the nights became a sanctuary. Humans and Lysorians were supposed to remain distant, but the mutual understanding that grew between them was undeniable. Aiden taught Calyra simple human habits: how to rest without vigilance, how to find comfort in physical presence, how to release fear instead of holding it like a shield. And she, in turn, shared the subtle nuances of Lysorian empathy, teaching him to sense moods and energies he had never noticed. In this way, they learned from one another, bridging species and lifetimes through shared nights and quiet conversations. But the moment of reckoning came unexpectedly. The royal council, observing their unusual bond, demanded a demonstration of loyalty. Some feared that a human could influence the youngest royal too deeply, possibly destabilizing centuries of tradition. "You cannot stay with her," one elder insisted. "It is improper. Dangerous." Calyra's eyes, usually so composed, flared with defiance. "He has saved me. He has taught me. I will not abandon what is true." Aiden placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll face this together." Together, they presented themselves before the council. The elders were unconvinced at first, but then they saw something remarkable. A human who did not command, did not fear, but simply stood by the one he cared for. And they saw a Lysorian who had grown stronger, braver, and calmer because of him. After hours of deliberation, the council relented. Not because rules had changed, but because true courage and empathy could not be denied, even across species. That night, when the palace was finally silent, Calyra and Aiden returned to the private chamber. "You have changed everything," she murmured, settling beside him. He held her close. "No, you've always had the strength. I just reminded you of it." For hours, they lay together in quiet peace. The stars outside the palace windows shimmered, a reminder of worlds beyond, of civilizations intertwined. And in the warmth of human touch and alien grace, two beings, different yet united, found solace, understanding, and a connection that defied all odds. As she drifted into sleep for the first time without fear, Aiden whispered softly, "I'll be here. Always." And for once, the royal heir felt safe. Truly safe.